to our individual working groups, individual jobs, and maybe ideate on it a little bit, and eventually, share with MITRE in some shape or form, where we can, collect this information and use it to kind of, synthesize and figure out how do we align this with our sponsor, and how do we align this with the overall intent and mission for CWE and the CWE program. So some possible look ahead. So one of the things I think is important, and as you read these questions, I think, I want to hear from you, and kind of, at least give me your initial thoughts on some of these questions. For instance, what would you like to see as improvements to the program, the CWE Compatibility Program? What is missing, right? I know it was developed back in 2007, 2008. There was a lot of things that has changed since then. So I'm sure there are things that are missing, but I also think there are things that we can improve upon. So if we can just have a quick discussion, I'm gonna take about 5 individuals to just see what are things that you would like to see in terms of improvements from the program, and what do you think is missing? If you can take 1 minute to just give me a quick rundown of what you think is missing, and or what do you think we need to improve on. Don't everybody go at once. You guys there?
We're here. This is why we assign panelists for each session, right?
Say that again. Well, I'll go into the second question. How can we make it more valuable for you? Must be more than just marketing, right? So initially, I know there were some folks who indicated, hey, when we first initially joined the CWE Compatibility Program, we did it because vendor X was doing it, or we did it because marketing said it was a good thing to do. I think we want to kind of move past that and really kind of embrace the initial intent of it, and really get people to, collaborate and really try to say, hey, we recognize this is an important program, so that we can, not only improve the state of practice, but increase the adoption of how CWE is a way to help people improve how we do develop software. So in particular, how do we kind of, make it more valuable for you, right? When I say more valuable in terms of, the commitment, in terms of, being a part of it, collaborating. I know there's things on our end we need to do, but obviously, we want to make it more than just a marketing program, that where people and vendors enroll because it's nice to have CWE coverage or CWE authorized on your website. So I think that's one thing that, we are constantly thinking about and trying to make it. And I'm not sure if we need to incentivize it, but it's just a way we need to, kind of position it and make it a little bit more than just marketing.
So I would suggest to you, and you might put it partly under marketing, but it's more about showing continued relevance. And by that, I mean, just simply putting out a new version of CWE doesn't really spark interest or something.
Right.
If, as we've discussed earlier today, the possibility of having a new top 10 list or top 40 list for mobile devices, or for each of those, and then you do market that as far as, so it's on there, and then the individual vendors here, everybody's tools saying, yeah, we can provide a report based on that, the top 20 for mobile devices, or the top, X for electronic voting devices, or for medical devices. That would help the vendors. And so number one, it takes an effort as us as a community to come up with a new list. MITRE would promote it, and it's a way of helping keep it relevant. And you don't put them all out at once. You kind of pace it over time, and that keeps it out in the forefront. The news media would pick up on those kind of things.
All right. Good point. I think that kind of answers the fourth one. So I'm just going to jump to the fifth one. How can MITRE CWE team better work with you? When we're always looking for industry engagements, more collaboration, this is a huge area that we realize we can't do it by ourselves. We need not only you guys in industry, but we need to work with customers as well as folks in academia to really build a more stronger effort to kind of work on these things, right? There's a research element to making these improvements. There's a development effort. There's a outreach effort. So there's different pieces to this, and we're not going to solve it overnight. But I think it's important that we work with industry more. So the question becomes, how can MITRE better work with industry in making some headway in improving and addressing some of these challenges that have been addressed today?
Well, continue to do forums like this where you bring us together. And I mean, we could end up even talking about how do we reach a broader stakeholder community. But these kind of forums are very useful, and it's something that it takes MITRE to do, or the government, rather than any individual company here saying, hey, let's all get together. It's like by MITRE doing it, it's a way of bringing us together.
Alex, James, Arthur, Paul, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think what Joe suggested is great. Events like these are...
Yeah, Alex has his hand up, by the way, too.
Yep, sorry.
No, go ahead, Paul. I don't mind.
I was done. Just seconding Joe.
Yeah, I think that venues like this, where we're actively collecting feedback, is very positive. But there's some specific things that I think we could be doing a lot better and leveraging the CWE team more. A concrete example of that in the last, say, 12 to 24 months is OWASP published the ASVS version 4, right? And one of the contributions of ASVS version 4 was they included a column for CWE mappings.
Right.
And we looked at it because we actually had some customers wanting to use that methodology. And it was a massive lift.
Wow.
To try and do the mapping, because number one, those CWEs that are in there are not effective for ASVS, right? So if we want to make a real target on effectiveness and assisting customers, if we have a dictionary of weakness types, which we have in the CWE, and we have somebody seeking standards compliance or usability of a methodology, having active engagement. I'm not saying MITRE has to do the mapping themselves, but make themselves available to teams that are doing the mappings to make it a collaborative effort.
Right.
Because if those mappings were published or made expert opinions on whether or not mappings are correct, we would miss a lot, we would avoid a lot of wasted effort, right? And it was mentioned earlier that we shouldn't be mapping to categories. We shouldn't be mapping to views, but you find examples of that in the ASVS.
Right.
So that's something I think we could be doing better, is just teaming on things around the mappings.
Right. So any more hands were raised?
See any other ones though?
So I'm gonna get to some things that I think are important to consider, and some things have been mentioned here, and you guys kind of read my mind. As a person who kind of, knew what CWE is, understood CWE, funded some work that was integrated into CWE, working in the federal government, understanding the challenges in terms of improving software assurance tools. I mean, I kind of took an approach to, hey, it's important to take a step back to really kind of look at how we can kind of, get things moving in the right direction. So one of the first things is, as James indicated, the information on the website is stale, right? We need to make sure we start cleaning up, getting updated information, improve the website in terms of the UI experience, the user experience, and really re-engage with participants as part of the program. There's some information that has been in here since 2011. Both Arthur and James said, I don't know when was the last time we submitted updated information, maybe 2 years ago. So I'm sure there's other examples of that are part of the CWE Compatibility Program. So one of the things we definitely need to do is we need to MITRE, in terms of MITRE, we need to re-engage with participants to get updated information, and we need to have a better user experience. 2, I think we need to eliminate the effectiveness phase. And the reason why I say that is there doesn't seem to be a stomach to get any type of tool evaluation off the ground, any type of tool study to help, provide a way to measure the effectiveness of how claims are being made in CWE coverage. I just think right now it's too hard to do that. So, I'd rather just focus on the 2 first phases of the CWE program. Phase 1 is the declarations, phase 2 is the evaluation. I think trying to do anything else and mislead people, I think we kind of have to clean that piece up. And maybe the focus should shift towards vetting and verifying some of the CCRs, the statements of coverage. I think we've all, kind of, not in detail, but I think there was some sentiments shared today about making that a possibility in terms of having something that could do something like that. Obviously, we need improved guidance for making coverage claims. I also think it could be a service offering and some online help that we can provide. As Alex said, there are different other entities like OASP who are having different type of taxonomies that they are mapping to CWE. Maybe we're providing some type of online service or some type of online help to get more tightly integrated some of these critical projects that no matter what we think about it, the industry has adopted, right? I think pretty much every AppSec program that I've been, part of or associated with or seen, by and large, they adopt the OASP top 10, right or wrong or indifferent. That's part of how people communicate within the AppSec industry. But obviously, we know that CWE is much larger than AppSec, but I'm just giving that an example. The third thing is we definitely need to talk more. We need to have an annual summit so we can engage community. With anything, there's always user group meetings where you listen to your customers, figure out what's some of their pain points, what's some of their challenges, what's some things they would like to see. I think by and large, people say it, not necessarily directly to MITRE. Sometimes we may get a second hand, but I think having a annual engagement with the community is a absolute great way to get the feedback, to build better collaborations, and also just understand what we should be looking at, right? To constantly be somewhat forward-leaning and make things to a point where we are identifying and people understand, here's the vision for CWE for the next year, for the next 2 years. Here's the vision for CWE Compatibility Program for the next year, for the next 2 years. And we can really, share that and be able to, have some good dialogue about the way forward. The last thing is, and I think Joe kind of touched on it at some point, an awareness campaign around CWE and the CWE Compatibility Program. Because a lot of people don't know what it is or how to use it. And I think we have to do a better job at educating the community around both of these key initiatives, right? Because they both go hand in hand to a certain extent. You have people who are doing software development. They need to understand what coverage is and how coverage is important to software development. You have people who are using tools. They need to understand why the CWE compatibility is important and how to use the information we're providing through our website to be able to select the right set of tools to help them with their software assurance needs. So I think these increased collaborations with vendors, as well as the larger software assurance community, is important. So these are the things that I think are possible look aheads and the things we should strongly consider. And one of the things is, we have some good data points today from the various conversations we've had with folks in industry on today's call. And I think it's important that we build on top of that. I think it's important that we continue to build on top of that. I think it's important we, be on the hook to provide something back to the community in terms of here's what we heard. Not only here's what we heard, here's what we think is a possible way forward, right? And then have the community weigh in on that. And we all can agree here are the next logical steps in moving forward. There's a lot of things we discussed. There's a lot of pieces that we need to address. but we need to try to prioritize these things that are not only important, or most impactful in terms of closing the gap that exists in the state of practice and state of the art. So I want to open up and have folks give the last parting shots. It's around 4 o'clock. We have about a half an hour. And, I want to get folks to kind of chime in and say, hey, here are things, are some possible next steps that not only you as a vendor or you as an end user should consider, but here's the things that MITRE should also consider along with thinking about the community.
We've been sharing our thoughts throughout the day.
Absolutely. But there are some who have not shared. There are some who have not shared and want to give them an opportunity to kind of share in. I think, the way in which the program, the compatibility is going to be shaped is really, really listening and learning and being able to provide, some alterations, some moderations to tailor the program. That's something that could be a lot more meaningful and really more aligned with the way in which industry is going. Well, if there's no more questions or comments at this particular point, I'm going to turn it over to Alec for closing remarks.
All right. Well, thanks, Kevin. Cheers. Thanks. I'll keep this short and sweet, really. I do want to convey sincere gratitude from all our presenters, for all our presenters and commenters and attendees on behalf of the CWE CAPEC program. This event obviously wouldn't have been possible without your willingness and continued interest and support. And as Kevin was just saying, and I said at the start of the day, this event really was very much intended as the first of what I hope will be a series of community engagements. We've talked about having a wider open community gathering, as well as potentially further recurring compatibility program sessions. So great to hear there's interest there. We've heard a lot of great conversations that yielded many valuable nuggets of information for the team and I to think on and carry with us as we continue our mission of delivering relevant, usable, timely information about weaknesses and corresponding attack patterns to our engaged community of users. A couple things before we sign off, again, real quick. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions that were not shared or didn't get to today during the various sessions, please do reach out to our project email. It's probably the easiest way, cwe@mitre.org. It's just cwe@mitre.org. And there will be, in the coming days and weeks, we'll be sharing some recap materials, I think, including some distilled minutes documentation from today and most likely video from today as well. So I know, again, that all of you have various work efforts and responsibilities that make enormous demands on your time. Thank you again for your willingness to share it with us today and participate in this endeavor. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. So cheers.
Thank you.
Great session.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Bye.